I became the nanny for my ex's son without knowing he was the father. If someone had told me I would end up caring for the child of a man who shattered my heart into a million pieces, I would have laughed in their face. But life has a cruel sense of humor. One that hides behind coincidences, silences, decisions that seem small until it's already too late. I wasn't looking for nanny work. I had just finished university and was surviving on temp jobs while trying to find something in my field. My neighbor told me about a family that urgently needed help with their son. He's a lovely 5-year-old boy. The mother works all day. They pay well. Want me to recommend you? At the time, I needed to pay rent and stop living on buttered rice, so I said yes without thinking. The interview was quick. The child's grandmother welcomed me, kind voice, tired eyes. She explained that her daughter was overwhelmed by work and that the boy's father wasn't present. I didn't ask more. She showed me the house, the toys, the child's routine. Then she introduced me to Simone. Simone was a sweet ball of energy, big eyes, easy smile, a way of talking that melted you. He hugged me from day one, and I, for some reason I can't explain, felt an immediate connection, as if I already knew him, as if some corner of my memory recognized him. I accepted the job and started the next day. The first days were chaotic, as beginnings often are. Simone was sweet but demanding. He needed bedtime stories before his nap, wouldn't sleep without his blue dinosaur plushie, hated warm milk, but loved buttered noodles. I adapted as best I could. Over time, I became his shadow. He told me everything. His dreams, his fears, even the things he didn't understand about adults. One afternoon, while drawing, he said, "My dad promised he'd come, but he never does." He said it without sadness, like someone who already knows promises aren't always kept. "How is your dad?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I don't know. Mom says he's busy." And that discomfort began to grow inside me unexplainable. Simone's mother, Clara, arrived home late every day, always exhausted, always thanking me as if I'd saved her life. She seemed kind, but every time the father was mentioned, her gaze shut down. She never used his name, just he. That he was a wall between us. 2 months passed before everything changed. One day, Clara asked me to stay late because she had a meeting with someone from the past. She spoke as though removing a splinter from her soul. I nodded, thinking nothing of it. That night, while Simone slept in my arms, the doorbell rang. I got up, holding him, and opened the door, expecting Clara. But it wasn't her. It was him. Matteo, my ex, the only man I truly loved. The one who left without explanation 6 years ago, saying, "I'll be back in an hour," and vanished forever. He froze when he saw me. I did too. We stood in silence, and Simone murmured, "Daddy." My world collapsed. Daddy. Matteo was Simone's father. We'd met again through a child who'd unknowingly burrowed into my soul. He entered quietly, sat down, and just looked at me. Simone nestled into his chest like he belonged. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or run away. "Are you his father?" I finally asked, voice breaking. He nodded, eyes down. "I had no idea you were the nanny," he whispered. "And if you had known, I wouldn't have come." In that moment, I understood this wasn't going to be simple. Clara arrived soon after, saw us in silence, and said flatly, "So you know each other." Matteo tried to speak, but she stopped him. "Not here. Not in front of him." Simone slept peacefully on my lap. Clara took him to bed, returned, and said, "I want to talk tomorrow. With both of you, but separately." I left that night with my head in pieces. Couldn't sleep. How could this be possible? The man who broke my heart was the father of the child I cared for as if he were my own? How could fate put him back in my path through a child who had silently claimed a part of my heart? And most impossible of all, how could I continue caring for Simone, now knowing the truth? Because I loved him. Pure love that arose without conditions. He loved me because he needed me, because I was his refuge. Without knowing it, he restored a piece of me I thought dead. But everything was about to change again. The next morning, I woke up feeling like it had all been a dream. But when I looked at my phone and saw a message from Clara confirming the meeting, I knew it wasn't. It hadn't been a dream. Matteo had returned. And not just that, he had come back as the father of the boy I'd fallen in love with caring for. the boy I thought had nothing to do with my past until the day before. The meeting was at a cafe downtown, a neutral setting. Clara arrived on time, dressed with a formality I hadn't seen before. She sat across from me, ordered a coffee, and got straight to the point. I know this is uncomfortable for all three of us, but I need to know how long you and he have known each other. I told her the truth, everything, that we had been a couple for nearly 2 years, that he left out of nowhere, that I never heard from him again, that I never imagined he would reappear in my life, and certainly not like this. Clara listened without interrupting. She didn't cry, she didn't get angry, but I saw years of exhaustion in her eyes. When I finished, she paused for a moment, then said, "Simone doesn't know anything. He never knew. When Matteo left, I was already 2 months pregnant. He didn't want to know. He said it wasn't the time. He wasn't ready. He never asked again. Until 2 weeks ago." I froze. And why now? I contacted him. Out of necessity. Simone is starting to ask. And I no longer have answers. I wanted to give him the chance to be present if he really wants to. And it seems he now does want to. At that moment, I understood the cruelest paradox. I was present in that house, caring for the child of 2 people broken by their past choices. And the present had placed me right in the center of that impossible triangle. "Do you want me to quit the job?" I asked. "I don't know," Clara answered honestly. "Simone adores you, and you're good with him. But I don't want all this to confuse him further." "Neither do I." Clara sighed. "I'm only asking that you're honest with him. And if you decide to continue, understand that everything now has another dimension." I nodded. I couldn't promise more. Because honestly, I didn't even know what I wanted. Matteo texted me that same afternoon. "Can we talk?" I replied with a place and time. We agreed to meet at a park, near the playground where I sometimes took Simone. I didn't want to meet him behind closed doors. I needed air. I needed open sky so I didn't feel suffocated. He arrived with the face of a misbehaving child. The same expression I remembered from when he shut down, withdrew emotionally, and ran from what hurt. "I don't know where to start," he said. "You don't have to start. You just need to answer. Why did you leave me?" I spat. He swallowed hard, looked at the ground. "Because I learned Clara was pregnant, and I got scared. I felt trapped. I saw myself repeating my father's story, running. So I left. I left everything. It hurt, not because I didn't expect it, but because that confession fit perfectly into the void he'd left in me. He didn't just leave me. He escaped everything using our relationship as his exit. And why didn't you say anything? Because I knew it would break you. And because I'm a coward. I was then. I still am, though I'm trying not to be anymore." We sat in silence. The only sound was the laughter of children playing behind us. "I can't believe I cared for your child without knowing," I said. "That I grew attached to him. That I told him stories, held him when he cried, without knowing he carried your blood. Not only yours," he said, "also mine. Because you did for him what I never could." I felt like crying, but I didn't. "I'm not here for us to get back together," he added quickly, as if reading my mind. "I'm not here for that. I just want Simone to have a chance. For him to know me. And for you to decide whether you want to continue in his life." That sentence shattered me. Because there it was, the dilemma. Could I continue caring for that child without everything else colliding? Could I separate my pain from the love I developed for him? Could I look at Matteo without remembering the wound? I went home that night, my heart locked in constant battle. Simone waited with his little blue dinosaur, and his usual smile. "You know what?" he said during dinner. "My dad said he's going to come more often, but I don't know if I like it." "Why?" I asked. "Because when he's here, you're sad." In that moment, my heart broke. Because children see, children feel, and that child had already read me more than I had let myself feel. That night I watched him sleep, and I understood that the question was no longer whether I should carry on. The true question was, how could I do it, without breaking myself again? There wasn't a single moment since that night, when I first realized everything had gone wrong, that I could stop thinking about all the damage I couldn't prevent. I cared for Simone with the same tenderness as always, but now everything felt more fragile. Every smile, every gesture, every word he said. carried a different weight. Because now I knew. I knew he wasn't just the child whose milk I warmed, and whose songs I taught. He was my ex's son. The son of a man who walked away without a word, and now wanted to return. Not to me, but to the life of a child I already loved as my own. I didn't talk to anyone about this. Neither Clara, nor Mateo, nor my friends. I kept it all inside, because part of me didn't want anyone's opinion. It was too intimate, too confusing, too real. Until the moment I was afraid of finally came, I cracked. It was an ordinary afternoon. We were at the park. Simone was on the slide. Mateo had promised he'd come. Each time Mateo said he would, I didn't know whether to hope or hold my breath. He'd been showing up more often lately, but each visit stirred up things I was trying to hide. That day he arrived carrying a bag of candy. Simone ran to him and hugged him. The three of us sat on the grass. At first, everything seemed peaceful. But then Simone, with that brutal innocence only children have, said, "Daddy, do you know I want you and her to live with me?" We looked at each other. I wished I could disappear. Mateo stiffened. "I don't think that's going to happen, buddy," he said, stroking his hair. "Why not? You love her. I know you do. Things aren't always that simple, kiddo. But I love you both. Isn't that enough?" That was when I broke. I told them I was going to the restroom. I walked to the cafe at the corner and locked myself inside a stall. And there, in silence, I cried like I hadn't in years. That kind of crying that comes from the deepest place, the kind you can't hold back. It wasn't just sadness. It was guilt, helplessness, love, anger, all exploding at once. How do you explain to a child that love doesn't always win? How do you tell them that some wounds run so deep that not even the purest affection can heal them? I went home alone. That night, I asked Clara to take over. I made up an excuse. She didn't ask questions. She just knew with one look that something irreversible had shifted. And that night, I finally did what I'd been avoiding for days. I talked to Mateo. I asked him to meet me at a cafe far from the neighborhood, somewhere no one would recognize us. I needed to say it all without reservations. He arrived as usual, with that expression that seemed to carry the weight of regret. "I can't keep doing this," I said, cutting to the chase. "I can't pretend this is normal. I can't keep caring for Simone as if nothing's changed." "Are you going to stop?" he asked. "I don't know, but I need space. I need to understand my place in all this, because I feel replaced, used, confused." Mateo was silent. "I didn't want this to happen like this," he said. "I know, but it did. And you can't just show up now and expect everything to be okay." "I'm trying to do right by him," he replied. "After 6 years?" "Yes, after 6 years." I told him about Simone's question about us living together. "That's when I realized," I said. "I once believed love was enough. With you. But look how that ended." He looked down, said nothing more, and I understood he had nothing left to say, because nothing could erase abandonment. That night I made a decision. I told Clara I needed to step away for a while, that I couldn't stay part of something so emotionally volatile, that I was doing it for Simone. He deserved stability, and I right now couldn't give it to him. Clara, surprisingly, understood. "He'll miss you," she said. "So will I." That was when I knew there was no hatred between us, only shared pain. I wrote a letter to Simone, one that Clara would read to him later when he could understand better. "Thank you for making me laugh when I needed it most. Thank you for trusting me. Thank you for teaching me that the purest love doesn't always come from where you expect it. I will always love you, even if I have to leave for a while." I left that week, my heart in pieces, but sure it was the right thing. Sometimes, loving also means knowing when to step aside. But one thing was clear. This isn't goodbye. It's a pause, a moment to breathe, to think, to heal, and above all, to rediscover who I am, beyond a past that hurt too much. Walking away was much harder than I ever imagined. I thought I'd feel free, that I could finally breathe without a knot in my chest. But the first days were anything but peaceful. I slept in late, found it hard to eat, and I had this constant urge to check my phone, hoping for a message from Clara or Simone. None came, and that hurt more than I ever dared admit. I moved in temporarily with a friend, who offered me her couch without asking many questions. At night we spoke little, but her silence helped me more than any advice ever could. Nearly 2 weeks passed before I finally slept a full night without dreaming of Simone. He appeared in my dreams, running toward me with his blue dinosaur, asking why I hadn't returned. I woke up crying, my chest tight. It was a different kind of pain, not a breakup, something else entirely. It felt like leaving behind a child who wasn't mine, but whom I loved with everything I had. One day I decided to write. I opened a new document on my computer and poured everything out. How I met him, when I learned the truth, why I left, not to publish, just to understand myself. Maybe by reading it, I'd make sense of it all. And writing helped. A little, at least. It helped me sort through my thoughts, name my emotions. But it didn't heal me. Nothing did, not completely. Until one afternoon, Clara called. "Simone is asking about you. Every day." I froze. My hands began to tremble. "I'm not asking you to come back. Just see him once. I don't know if it's a good idea, but he insists. And I don't know what to say." I agreed. I couldn't say no. I met him in the park, the same place where everything began to unravel. He wore his blue cap and clutched his drawing book, and offered that same hug that always broke me. He ran to me as if no time had passed. "I thought you'd forgotten me," he said. "I could never." We played for an hour. He told me about school, showed me his drawings. He didn't mention Matteo. He didn't ask why I left. He just looked at me as if nothing had changed. But everything had. When we said goodbye, he hugged me tight. "If you leave again, can I have your t-shirt to sleep with your smell?" he asked, with that brutal childhood logic that hurt more than any accusation. I said yes. That night, I sent him an old t-shirt with a dinosaur drawing. Clara sent me a photo. Simone asleep, hugging the shirt. I cried in silence. I didn't go back to working for them. Clara and I had that talk. We agreed it was best. But I began visiting once a week. Sometimes at their home. Sometimes in the park. No pressure. No tough questions. Just him and me. Meanwhile, Matteo began to disappear again. Clara told me. He promised it would be different. But you know how he is. He didn't show up for 2 weeks. Then sent guilty messages. And I no longer had the energy to cover for him. "You shouldn't do that," I replied. And then I realized Clara was exhausted too. Her strength was a daily choice. And somewhere inside her she needed me. Not as a replacement, but as an ally. One afternoon she invited me over for a drink. Simone was playing in his room. "I want you to know that if you ever want to be more present, our doors are open." "More present how?" I asked. "As his aunt, as his friend, as family, as whatever you want to be. Because he needs you. And so do I." I didn't know what to say. I just hugged her. That hug ended everything that had shattered us, and began something new. Something neither of us had planned, but that finally made sense. Matteo showed up a week later. He wanted to talk to me. We met at a cafe. He apologized, said he didn't know how to fulfill his role, that it was overwhelming, that he feared repeating old patterns, that he felt excluded. "I can't help you with that," I told him. "That's something you have to figure out yourself. But do you think I can still be part of it? That doesn't depend on me. It depends on whether you're going to show up or leave again." He stayed silent, and I realized he didn't have the answer. I never saw him or heard from him again. And in time, Clara stopped too, but Simone remained, steady, luminous, with his love intact. And I learned how to be, without guilt, without ownership, without needing him to call me Mom or Dad's partner. Just me, present, consistent, and that was enough. 3 years have passed since that day in the park, when Simone ran to me as if time didn't exist. Today he's 8 years old. He's grown so much. Sometimes I barely recognize the boy who couldn't sleep without his blue dinosaur plush. Now he loves real dinosaurs, those with names I can't pronounce. But he repeats them with a confidence that makes me smile. I still see him every week. I never went back to nanny work. My life took a different direction. I began leading workshops for families on emotional bonds and attachment parenting. Yes, it sounds ironic, but sometimes the most powerful paths open precisely where one was most wounded. I started with a small group, sharing what I had learned, not from books, but from lived experience. Today, I'm part of a beautiful community of mothers, fathers, caregivers, and adults who, like me, learned that loving also means knowing how to be there without owning anyone. Clara and I are friends now, not the kind who text memes daily or go out every weekend. We're that deeper kind of friendship, silent, respectful, built on understanding with a single glance. We share Simone's life in harmony, something I never thought possible between two women who, without meaning to, were connected by the same man and the same child. We never heard from Matteo again. He left as quietly as he came. Sometimes, when Simone asks about him, Clara answers simply, without embellishment, "Your dad didn't know how to stay." And he nods. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't cry. He just looks down for a moment, then goes back to drawing. Once I asked if he missed him. "Just a little," he said, "but it doesn't hurt so much anymore." That's when I understood that children, when surrounded by honest love, don't need fairy tales. They need presence, consistency. People who say, "I'm here," and actually stay. Simone calls me by my name. I'm not his mother. I don't pretend to be. But every time he falls and comes looking for me, every time he hugs me unprompted, every time he says, "I don't like how my drawing turned out, but I give it to you anyway," I know our bond doesn't require labels. And that is beautiful. A few months ago, we went together to the park, where it all began. It was spring. The flowers were blooming, and the air smelled like new chances. Simone ran to the tree he used to climb when he was smaller. He sat at its base and called me. "You know what? My name," he said. "When I grow up, I want to have a house with a tree like this. And I want you to visit me every day." "Every day?" I asked, smiling. "Well, every other day, so you don't get tired." We laughed together, and I hugged him tight, because I realized that's what love is. Not the kind you promise forever, but the kind you build with small gestures, with truth, with time. Today I have my own home. Not very big, but full of plants and light. In the entryway hangs a drawing Simone made for me last year. It shows him and me holding hands. He's wearing his blue cap. I'm smiling. And above, written in slightly shaky letters, it reads, "My favorite person." Every time I look at it, I'm moved. Not because I think I'm special, but because I know everything that led to it. I know how many goodbyes, how many silences, how many hard choices we had to face to get here. Life didn't give me a child, but it gave me a bond so deep. It's as if it did. It taught me that love doesn't always come with an heir surname or a clear contract. Sometimes it simply appears, and if you have the courage to stay, even if it hurts, even if it's uncomfortable, then it blossoms. And if someone asked me today what I learned from all this, I would say, I learned that bonds don't need definitions to be real, that there are wounds that don't close, but stop bleeding, that abandonment isn't always the end of the story, that you can care without owning, love without controlling, support without being the star, and that, even when everything seems to fall apart, if you keep walking with an open heart, something good always awaits on the other side. Maybe not what you expected. Maybe it's something better.